Друзья, добрый день. Мне очень приятно, что сегодня у нас в гостях один из самых лучших сомелье в мире. И я считаю, что это лучший сомелье в мире по ощущениям, глубине, мастерству, пониманию вина. Это мастер of wine, один из двух в Европе мастеров саке, чемпион мира 98 года, Маркус дель Монего. Дело в том, что все истории успеха выглядят очень ясно, гладко в самом конце. И есть вещи, с которыми люди должны справиться в процессе и должны пожертвовать, чтобы добиться успеха. Какова вот твоя история вот этого достижения результата, который есть сейчас? И что бы ты сделал по-другому, если бы мог оглянуться назад и что-то поменять?
If I would look back, I would say I would not do things much more different than I did them at that time.
А как выглядит история его успеха, вот то, что вот он достиг, получил?
For me, it was the possibility to show my knowledge, but also it was the motivation to gather knowledge, because when you have a competition, it's like an exam. So you learn, you prepare, and therefore my whole life I always was looking for competitions, as we had no sommelier schools in Germany. So the competitions were my exams, and therefore the motivation was very high to show what I'm able to do and how my knowledge can be displayed. In fact, to prepare a World Championship is a whole process. You don't start 1 year or 2 years before, but it's the sum of everything you have learned and what you have experienced in your life. And therefore, over a long time, for many, many years, all my holidays, I was in the wine regions. My holidays were wine tastings in the cellars, were dining with the producers, were events around the wine. So all these things brought me to a certain knowledge level where then I dared to participate in the World Championship. I was so focused on wine that some friends said, "Oh, you're never going to marry, you are married to the wine." In fact, I got married. Very happily.
Прекрасно. А существуют ли какие-то табу или вещи, которые бы он никогда не сделал в своей профессии, в бизнесе, вот какие-то вещи, которые он никогда бы не переступил?
I think the most important thing we have in our profession is to make our guests happy.
Ну да.
If a guest would like to have Coca-Cola blended into his wine, this is his cup of tea. I would not like to drink it, but I would put the bottle on the table. I would not serve it. He can do it. That's his thing.
If you like.
But if he likes, but I wouldn't do it for me. But I think we have to accept the taste people have. And very often in the Western world, for example, we say, "Oh, look, in Asia they put this sort of liquid into wine. This is disgusting." On the other side, when the Asians look at us and see what we are doing with their tea,
yes,
putting sugar in the tea, for them it's as cruel as Coca-Cola in Petrus. So I think we have to accept that we have different levels of education, different levels of experience, and that we have different levels of expectations in the restaurant. And we have to make people happy, but we can give them the option to do it by themselves in the end. This year on the World Championship, for example, in Antwerp, we had one task where a lady asked for ice in her sweet wine. And for sure, you can deny it to her, which is not very polite. You can put the ice cubes in the wine where you don't know exactly how she likes it, and it's a little bit a hesitation for a sommelier to put ice cubes in a wine, but the right way to solve the problem was putting the ice cubes on the table and the lady can help herself. It's very simple. And this brings me back to my first steps in the gastronomic business. I was 17 years old and I had the idea with some friends, we go to Paris in holidays. And my parents and the parents of my friends said, "Oh, that's a very good idea. So summer holidays, you can work and earn the money to go to Paris in autumn because you have 10 days of autumn holidays." This I said, okay, let's do it like this. And I started at Mövenpick in Basel, in Switzerland, for a holiday job. And at the very beginning, a waiter fell ill, and I had to replace him. And I was, knowing the base stuff, so it was not the ideal situation. But the restaurant manager, she said, "Oh, don't worry, I'm going to help you." And then I had a situation, an American guest coming in with his wife and his daughter, asking for the best bottle of red wine we have in the cellar. So I went to the restaurant manager and asked her, "Can you tell me what is the best bottle of wine we have in the cellar?" And she said, "Yeah, take 1970 Chateau Talbot."
Mm-hmm.
And I served 1970 Chateau Talbot, as she told me. And the guest took a sip, tasted it, said, "Oh my goodness, that's disgusting." Took the sugar, put sugar in the glass, stirred with the back of his knife, tasted again and said, "Okay, now it is better, you can serve my wife." I gave some wine to the lady, reserved him a bit in the glass, and went out to the back office and said, "I'm not going back to this table. They're completely crazy. They put sugar in the wine." And the restaurant manager, she was looking at me and said, "Yeah, but you did the mistake." I said, "Why? I asked you what is the best red wine, and I served the best red wine to them." And she said, "Yeah. Have you asked the guest what, in his opinion, is the best red wine?"
Yes.
And I said, "No. Why haven't you told me?" And her answer was, "So you learn it better." And she promised me when I go back to the table, and the table leaves the restaurant happily and satisfied, everything is fine,
Yes.
then she will do a wine seminar with me the next day. And the guests were, at the end, everything went well. The guest showed me the label of the bottle he had before, which was 1970 Assmannshäuser Höllenberg Spätlese Sweet from the Rheingau. And this was a sweet wine. So if he would have said, "I would like to have a sweet wine," it would have been much easier. But he wanted to have the best wine, because this was for him the best wine. And the next day, in the end, I got my wine seminar. And in the evening, I tried everything I learned out on my guests. And the guests were happy. I said, "Okay, this is a nice thing when it's so easy to make people happy. This could be a great job for you." And so I arrived in the end in the gastronomic world. I started to do more holiday jobs. And when I finished my A-level, then I did not go to study, but I made an apprenticeship in the hotel business.
Это интересная история. Я думаю, с многими сомелье было что-то похожее. Я, когда такие проходил моменты, я пришел к выводу, что в итоге самое важное для сомелье понять, что хочет гость, именно по ощущениям, через сопереживание. Буквально за 1-2 вопроса ты должен почувствовать, что он хочет, когда в большинстве случаев гости сами не знают, что хотят. Ну, такое часто бывает.
I think you asked for taboo, and for me a taboo is serving a guest without trying to understand him. This is impossible, because it's
Very
not our
important.
DNA. I have another very funny story, very interesting story, very long, so it will be difficult to translate, I apologize. But when I was a young sommelier at the Park Hotel Bremen, I had one evening guests coming in. It was 9 o'clock, and on that evening we had a big function, so I was taking care of the restaurant also as head waiter. And the guests came in, I placed them and I seated them, and then they asked me, they would like to have a dinner. And do you also serve sweet wines? I said, "Sure, no problem, whatever you want to." Okay, so they ordered filet steak with a red wine sauce and everything. I took the order, and then they said, "And we would like to have something sweet with it." I said, "That's a good idea. We have this and this and this and this option," and I tried to find some sweet wines which could manage this dish. And I suggested to them, if you take, for example, this or that wine, we could make it even nicer for you, and instead of the red wine sauce, we could put the foie gras sauce, so it would even match better with the sweet wine, if this would appeal to you. "Oh yeah, wonderful." They were very happy, and when they left, they said, "We were in another restaurant before, therefore we had no reservation with you, and we were denied to get a sweet wine with the dinner, so we left the restaurant." So this is impossible. They don't know, it happened, and it happened not far from here. I said, "Okay." So these guests became regular guests, and every Wednesday they came for dinner because they were dentists, and Wednesday they had the evening off. So for half a year they were turning up regularly, and one day they said, "Now, Mr. Del Monego, we would like that you serve a wine with this meal we are going to have tonight. And you do the selection, and it has to be a dry wine. We want now to taste what a dry wine is." I said, "Okay." And I thought about, for the dish they have chosen, I thought a déshalé from Switzerland could work very well. And they served a déshalé. And they tasted the wine and said, "We didn't want to have a sweet wine, we wanted to have a dry wine." I said, "Sorry, this wine is bone dry, has no gram of residual sugar. But it doesn't taste sour." I said, "But dry wines are not tasting sour when they're well made." And for them, they said, "Okay, we drink this wine and we taste other dry wines later on." And in the end, this couple became a wine collectors couple. They have today all the finest wines in the cellar. The sweet wines like Yquem, what they always had at home, was slowly replaced by other famous brands from Bordeaux and Burgundy. And the advantage was, as they were dentists, they became my dentist, and they always said, "When you come late in the day, so around 7:30, and then you are the last person we are treating. And afterwards, we go upstairs and we have a decent dinner to soothe a little bit the pain you have." And so every visit at a dentist was for me paradise, because first there was the painful treatment downstairs, and afterwards there was the greatest wines of the world during a dinner. Usually the dentist visit ended at 3 o'clock in the morning. So just to show, if you don't know what you want as a guest, when you talk about what you want and how do you define it, you can get help. And the same for the sommelier. If the sommelier knows what a guest would like to have, he is able to help.
Какие сейчас проекты ему интересны, над чем он работает, и какая сейчас самая амбициозная идея, которую ты вот сейчас перед собой ставишь, какая сейчас главная цель в вине?
At the moment, I have just a new project of changing completely my life, because till the end of last year, I was very much involved in organoleptic quality control. And after 15 years doing this job, I thought I would like to have something which has a more creative side, not only controlling, but also developing things. So I closed this one company, and with my second company, where I do consulting, seminars, tastings and things like these, I'm going to continue. And my aim is really to be more creative in the future. So my first project, which has just been released yesterday, the first bottles arrived the day before yesterday, is a project on an own gin. So I have now my own gin, Mr. M's, and a very special gin which reflects my life, because it's the aromas from all the places where I have been, places which have impressed me. So there is Japanese cherry blossoms in, components from the north of Germany where I lived, Riesling flowers or Riesling blossoms from the Rheingau. So it's a little bit this story to have this creative side. And they have with Hubertus Wallendar, who is a really great distiller and one of the best distillers in Europe, a very good partner to realize these projects. So we have many more projects to come on the side of the spirits. So the spirits are getting a little bit more attention in the future. However, I will never leave the world of wine. I have now signed a contract to do an own blend for a client who wanted to have a very special blend for his purposes, and start to work with the vintners to do blends for specialized, for tailor-made blends for special clients, and do consulting work, because for me it's very important to find concepts which are communicating about wine. Only when we communicate about wine, we can be successful with our clients, with our guests. And when we have a good communication, not only at the table in the restaurant, but also all over the world where wine is drank. Good communication there gives you a good base for the consumer to learn what he likes and to learn how wine can be really enjoyed. So that's very important for me. These are my projects for the next years to come, and I will travel a lot, which is great fun. I love doing seminars and presentations, so I will do a lot of these things in the future too. And for me it's always amazing when I have a crowd of people and we do a tasting or a seminar or a masterclass, and people then start asking questions or giving comments, because then you have the interaction with the people sitting there. Then you see the real interest, and you really can tell, you can display the knowledge you have, and you can tell them or help them to get the information they need.
То, о чем он говорит, это действительно очень важно, поскольку людей с таким огромным опытом очень мало, и, наверное, действительно прекрасно, что он может им поделиться с большим количеством людей благодаря тому, что сейчас есть интернет, там, видео и так далее, и так далее. Какая главная тенденция сейчас, по его мнению, в мировом виноделии, самая долгоживущая? И какая бы страна, наверное, или несколько стран являются самой такой прогрессивной в плане развития виноделия? Но самое важное, какая именно тенденция сейчас, вот, по его мнению, самое главное, которое происходит в мире вина?
Concerning the methods, which will be the long-lasting future methods, I think we are living in a time where people really understood that wine starts in the vineyard and not in the cellar. So sustainable concepts. They might not all be biodynamic or how you call it, or organic wines, but sustainable concepts, taking in consideration what helps the next generation to live on this planet, how can we protect and hand over a heritage to our children and grandchildren. I think this is something which has now really found profound entry in the world of wine. All these concepts around sustainability will be the long-lasting concepts, because we have to be sustainable. We can't deny that the world is changing, that the climatic situation is changing, and we have to take a certain responsibility for that. On the techniques, I think we are much more precise on winemaking today than 50 or 100 years ago. And never wine has been that pure and clean as today. So even a wine which is not very expensive, even people who have not the money to afford prestigious bottles, find a lot of fun with really very good wines. It's very hard to find today, let's say in Europe, really bad wine. So
Eurowine.
Sorry?
It's a lot of wine. It's name of Eurowine.
Okay.
Without face, but
yeah, okay.
good quality.
It's just a certain quality level. It's not giving you an information about the terroir perhaps, or a certain characteristics, but it's at least clean, which is already progress. Because if you think about 2000 years ago, people drank vinegar if they couldn't afford wine. Today, almost everybody can drink wine, which is already good progress. But I think that that the work in the cellar, the precision of treating the grapes, of vinifying, these are the long-lasting trends, because today you have a whole array of options. You can work with stainless steel, with concrete, you can work with oak. You can age in small barrels, in larger barrels, or you remain in tank. So you have a lot of options. And if I look at the young generation in Germany today, we have this, how do you call it, generation Riesling, young generation of very dedicated young producers, where very often the parents have supplied the grapes to the cooperative or to a bigger cellar. And they now say, no, we are working on our own. We have our own ideas. And they are all well educated. They have been studying in Geisenheim or at the other schools we have in Germany, Weinsberg, for example. Then they have been in foreign countries. They know the new world. So they have a lot of things they brought back to your home. and then they start to make their own wines. And this is for me the great concept for the future, that you have influences. You can have today influences from all over the world, and then you can select what is intelligent for me, what is good for my wines, and you can create your own style. And this type of continuity, I think this will be very important in the future. Sustainable work in the vineyard, looking at all options you have and then selecting the right options to vinify the wines you really want to have. That's for me much better than to think about the next orange wine or the next wine without sulfur, which perhaps doesn't survive a year in the bottle.
А какое самое старое с точки зрения именно возраста и готовое вино в состоянии правильного баланса ты пил?
The oldest wine I ever tried in my life, I was very happy to taste it twice in my life, was the 1727 Apostel wine from the Ratskeller in Bremen. The Ratskeller is the cellar of the town hall of Bremen, a very famous wine cellar, because the town hall always had huge stocks of great wines. And the 1727, it's a wine which is almost 300 years old, and still today is in pristine conditions. It's bottled in small bottles. It's absolutely amazing to have a wine experience like this. When we had last time the tasting, I asked all the people, the first half an hour you don't drink, you just smell, because we were 10 for half a bottle, so it was little in the glass. After half an hour, they saw how the wine was opening up, how it was evolving, and then they were allowed to take a small sip. And it was incredible experience. And we tasted this wine over the whole evening. We tasted a lot of other wines also, but this wine always in between. And after 6 hours, the wine, the last sip, was on the tongue, and even in the evening when I was back home, when I brushed my teeth, I even had the taste of this wine on the palate. And the host of this evening told me the next morning when he came into this room, there was still the smell of this wine in the room, so intense it was. It was a real great, very emotional thing. Mm-hmm. And I had twice the chance to taste it, so I'm considering me as a very, very lucky person.
Что сейчас происходит в Германии, что происходит с немецким вином, в какую сторону идет рислинг, в какую сторону развиваются красные вина, как это все происходит сейчас в Германии?
So in Germany at the moment I think we are in a very, very lucky position, because we have the generation of the former young producers which started to reshape the world of wine in Germany in the 90s. People like Joachim Heger, for example, Karl-Heinz Johner, the Bernhard Huber, Ernie Lawson, all these people, these were the youngsters, the first generation of youngsters, already reshaping the world of wine very much. And now we have the second generation of youngsters, and they come with their own ideas. And I think these two generations have brought back Germany on the level of top quality wine producers. The red wines became extremely important, and today when you look at the work of the Huber family, of Fritz Keller, people like
Geva Fricke, maybe Teresa Breuer and Dortje Nekel.
Yeah, these people are really doing great wines. On the red wine world, I think Pinot Noir became the grape variety, which is highly interesting. And today it's no more a Burgundian copy, but it's a known style you find in Germany, which is really good. And the other advantage we have is on the white wine side. We have good climates to grow white wines. And if you look at Riesling only, the diversity on Riesling styles, you just named Eva Fricke and you named Teresa Breuer, these two young ladies, they have an own fingerprint on their Rieslings and continuing the work of their ancestors. And this is deeply impressive. And when I see we have, for example, in the Palatinate is a whole generation now of young producers, like in Rheinhessen too. They are these producers who have been perhaps linked to cooperative wine cellars in the past. And these young people, they don't have a market yet. So we had an idea with Lufthansa to do in the first class lounge in Munich a promotion. We invite them always to vintners to present one wine for 1 month. So they have 24 bottles they sent there, and these wines are tasted. And the feedback we get from the clients, it's incredible, because they say, we never have thought about this type of wine, and it's so good, but the winery, I never heard about it. So it's a real promotional tool to give a little bit more of visibility to this young generation. And on the other side, when you look what the VDP does, we had just last week the tasting of the tasting of the Grand Crus, so the große Gewächse, the presentation, and it was amazing to see 500 wines from Germany in this tasting. A lot of Riesling, but also Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, Pinot Noir, Sylvaner, Lemberger. So this is impressive when you see what qualities are on the table, and that you really have hardly a chance to find a wine which is perhaps not splendid. This might be an exception confirming the rule. Most of these wines are really on a top quality level. And the consumers today, they appreciate this quality. And the consumer also today changes a little bit. It's more open-minded, going even towards a slightly sweeter style, because the große Gewächse are all dry. The young producers are working very much on the dry side. But we have an expression in Germany which is called Feinherb, which means you could say well-balanced dry. So there might be a hint of sweetness, but balanced with acidity or tannins can be very interesting. And this Feinherb category sounds very positive and sounds dry to the consumer, not like semi-dry or sweet. That's clearly something which they don't appreciate anymore. But with this category, we can show that when you have a good acidity, when you have a hint of sweetness, you can do extremely well-balanced wines, matching the modern styles of cuisine we have in Germany today, because we have all international influences coming to Germany. And this is what really makes wine so exciting in Germany today. We have changed from a country where imported wine was the god and the own wines were neglected, to a country where today the German wines have a very high reputation, and it is very en vogue to drink German wines and not automatically imported wines. So that's a change in Germany. We still import a lot of wines. All the wine countries of the world are represented more or less in Germany. But the acceptance for German wine, that's, I think, something which is very positive and helps the vintners to develop their own projects, their own products. And in the end, it's good for you, because with motivated vintners in Germany, you will find wines for your place. So everything falls into place. It's good.
Yes, thank you, okay. В связи с тем, что он сказал, меня очень интересует, что он думает по поводу Пьемонта, потому что, в принципе, сейчас появляется много людей в молодом поколении, которые делают правильные вина в правильном стиле, в котором раньше дедушки делали. А там 15 лет назад был, наоборот, бум на мощные вина. А в Пьемонте все так складывается очень странно, поскольку многие разоряются, и их покупают большие производители, и приходит новое поколение, которое делает все равно вино в таком модерновом стиле. И в свое время мне Мауро Маскарелло говорил, что слава богу, у нас есть Джакомо Контерне, потому что вот он как отец, как дед, там вот они правильно понимают, это здорово, потому что новое поколение. Но от Пьемонта у меня реальное ощущение, что довольно грустно будет через какое-то время. Что он думает, что будет через 10-20 лет там, как ему кажется?
First of all, I'm very proud to be the ambassador of the Accademia del Barolo.
Oh, la, la.
So I'm already linked to this topic. So wonderful that you mention it, because in the Accademia del Barolo you have, for example, Pio Cesare, you named before. So it's one of the members. You have the Gallardo family. You have Cordero di Montezemolo, and so on and so on. So a lot of really good producers. And I think Piemonte at the moment is undergoing a certain change towards the future. But as Piemonte is a very traditional area,
yes,
these changes are much slower, which I think is an advantage, because in some areas of Italy, changes have been so fast and brutal that style and character of the wines changed completely, and they redefined themselves. In the Barolo area, or in the Piemonte area for me, it's more, they go step for step on a slower mode and try to get the information about what they have changed, how it works, before they go to the next step. They're much more careful. So I think they have the chance to transmit this rich heritage to the next generations with probably the necessary alterations, because you have to be in evolution to cope with the world of wine, but not in a direction where you say, I will give up my style completely. You mentioned the big houses buying smaller producers. That's a fact. It's a fact all over the world, because not every family has children wanting to be every day in the vineyard doing the things. And then you have different approaches. Look at Brunotto, for example. Brunotto was a known estate with a very, very good reputation. Still has a very good reputation, but was bought by the Antinori family. But what are they doing? They keep the DNA from the Piemonte in the company. They may perhaps change a little bit in vinification, and a little bit, but it is a little bit. So when you have today a Brunotto, you still recognize it as a fruit of the Piemonte, and it's not a wine which could be from all over the world. Other areas, they have changed so quickly that today you can't find the DNA anymore. The French would say, where is the terroir? And the human being is an important influence on the terroir, but when the human being is intelligent, he really preserves, or is able to preserve, what nature has given. And I think in the Piemonte, it's a region which is not evolving that fast than many other regions, but this is a rather positive news, because then the mistakes are much less they can do.
Okay. Thank you. Можешь ты рассказать какую-нибудь смешную, веселую историю, которая с тобой происходила, связанная с вином?
Oh, I have a lot of funny stories in my life. I just have to think about which story is not looking me too badly. No, but I think there are very interesting and funny stories. Let's just, for example, tell you the story how I got to Bordeaux. I was an apprentice, and we have been a group of apprentices, and we were training on wine. So I said, okay, I am going to write to all the wine producers and ask for a sample, because as an apprentice you don't have the money. So, but we have to sell the wines in the future, and I presented our project and everything, and I also sent it to the classes in Bordeaux. And a few days after I have sent all the letters, at that time it was by post, you mailed it, stamps on it, and it was not email like today. And a wine importer came to our hotel, and this wine importer said, yeah, what are you doing? Asked what it was, and told him about his project. He said, oh, Markus, you won't get answers. They have other things to do than answering such letters, and they will never send you samples. In fact, Château Latour asked his importer to send us Château Latour and L'Effort de Latour. Château Margaux was answering that they don't send samples, but we are always welcome. So we went in the same year in autumn to Château Margaux for my first visit in Bordeaux in '86. The other chateaus sent us books and materials. They were all very kind. And this was my first way to come to Bordeaux at the age of 20 years, which was really a great experience. And at that point, I was very happy that I got the apprentice place I had, because nobody wanted to have me. When I applied in restaurants for an apprenticeship, everybody said, oh, you already have been trained, you had holidays, job, you are overqualified for an apprenticeship. And I wanted to have an apprenticeship because you want to have a document that you did something. And so I continued working at Mövenpick, and one evening, it was November, it was foggy, it was a bad day, no clients, and I was the youngest, so the old staff said, you stay outside in the restaurant, and when someone comes in, you take care of it. So they came two men and a woman, and sat down at the table, And it was very interesting because they wanted to have a snack, something small to eat. And then they started to ask me questions about the menus. And we had at that time a specialty week with food from the Engadin area in Switzerland. And I explained them everything. And at a certain moment, one of the men said, listen, have you ever had trainings or seminars with Mövenpick? I said, no, I never had. Why? But where have you done your apprenticeship? Because you have so much knowledge. I said, oh, I have no apprenticeship made. I'm working here because I can't find a place to get a place for an apprenticeship. So the other man at the table handed me over his business card and said, we are all 3 hotel managers, and if you want, that's my card. In 2 weeks, you can start your apprenticeship. And having this apprenticeship in my pocket, I said, okay, I have to come to see the place and I want to know where I go. It was a 4-star plus hotel in the northern part of Bavaria. And it was one of the most remote places in the world because 10 kilometers in the east was the wall to Berlin, the wall to the German Democratic Republic. So it was really very remote at that time. Today it's in the center, at that time it was remote. And in a place like this, you can only do one thing in the evening, learning. Because we had one small discotheque, and if not, we always say the average age of our customers is the postal code of the town. The postal code was 8889. So this was the average age of the customers. So it was really a place to start well. But then you have ideas, and you develop ideas like writing to wine producers or participating in competitions. And so the unlucky situation of not having an apprentice place turned out in the beginning of my career in the end. So sometimes the ways are very different.
Yes. Действительно, в жизни бывают моменты такие очень важные, поворотные.
I have another very funny story, which makes looking very badly, but I tell it to you.
No, it's okay.
It's right.
No problem.
Okay. I was at a bar, and when I became apprentice at a bar, the day before our bartender left. So the F&B director talked to me and said, Markus, our bar is not a real cocktail bar because we are in a spa place, so a lot of people drink a glass of wine, glass of champagne, a glass of beer. However, do you think you will be able to tend for the bar for a month? I said, listen, if you help me and if I can get the information, I will do so. And one of the first evenings, we had a guest who came in and said, I would like to have a glass of champagne. I said, okay, great. And I had to open a champagne bottle. And I did not do it very often before. And when the bottle was brought on the same day, probably it was shaken, because I realized when I tried to get the cork out of the bottle, there was a lot of pressure behind it. And I didn't want that the cork pops out like this. So I took the bottle, put it on the desk, on my working place behind the desk, and tried to put pressure on the cork so that it doesn't come out that fast. But the problem was that a very fine rain of champagne came out, and all the people around the bar, on the height of their glasses, when they had glasses, the glasses were full of champagne. And I was standing there in a complete shock. I couldn't move, and a lady came around the bar and said, listen, this is something which can easily happen. Don't worry. They're all grown ups. They can clean their glasses and their place. And now we tend over here. So the guest was helping me at the bar. It was one of my first days on the bar. It was incredible. I was completely in shock. But this lady became later on a very regular customer. She brought a lot of new customers. And it was always fun. And she said, we have a past together. That's very important. And so sometimes a big mishap can in the end be also very positive, and when it turns out that people are very positive towards you. And this was my first bottle of champagne I had to open on my own on the bar. And honestly, since then I make sure that the bottles are on ice, that they are well on the cooling system, and if the pressure is too much, I know what to do so that it's never again such a rain of fine champagne on the glasses of the guests.
То, что он говорит, очень важно, поскольку только взгляд назад и понимание того, что с тобой произошло, очень сильно помогает ощутить, насколько все было правильно, и какие были важные такие рэперные точки, которые сильно поменяли мировоззрение, отношение к жизни, отношение к профессии и так далее. Смотрел ли он лекцию Стива Джобса, читал ли лекцию Стива Джобса, называлась «Совмещение точек». Он рассказывал про то, что, находясь на том этапе развития, в котором он находился, он оглядывается назад и понимал, что если бы они не создали Pixar, то не было бы его сейчас, да. Если бы его не выгнали из Apple, он бы этот Pixar не создал. Если бы его оттуда не выгнали из Apple, то он не встретил бы свою жену. А сейчас, там, когда он опять вошел, когда Apple купил Pixar, он опять стал считать совет директоров и так далее. То есть только возвращаясь и глядя назад, ты понимаешь, насколько было важно какие-то моменты, которые происходят в жизни, и мы их не видим, не понимаем. А когда мы оглядываемся, мы видим, насколько это было важно и правильно.
And you know, I'm very much interested in history because I think to human beings, the past, the history, are the roots for the future. And no plant can grow without roots. And therefore, I think it's extremely important to. You should not live in the past, but you should get your conclusions from the past, and then you understand where to go in the future. And therefore, a lot of things which happened in my life, if I look back at them, I would not do them differently, because they brought me information, sometimes in painful moments, sometimes in a very easy way. But this information is making my personality today and will help me to advance for the future. So it's important to know what happened in the past. It's important to know where your roots are, and therefore, yeah.
Ну, есть такая фраза: посмотри в прошлое, и ты увидишь, какой ты сейчас, да, из-за прошлого. Или если ты хочешь посмотреть, какой ты будешь в будущем, то достаточно посмотреть на себя сейчас, именно таким ты будешь. Thank you, Markus. Большое спасибо.
Michael, thank you a lot. It was great fun being here.
Thank you. For me too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.